Doctor Who, Wild Blue Yonder by Mark Morris. Fenslaw. The TARDIS was on fire. It careered through the time vortex like a cat with a burning tail, flames spiralling around its outer shell, its roof light a fierce white torch trailing energy. The sound of its ancient engines was like the screaming of a soul in unbelievable pain. It flickered in and out of existence, seeking egress from the vortex, seeking somewhere to settle, to recover, or perhaps to die. It was the plainest, most undistinguished room imaginable. Small, square, empty, its grey metal walls and floor the colour of gloomy forgetfulness. It was quiet too, the sort of quiet that was embedded. The room gave the impression that nothing had happened in it for years, centuries, perhaps even eons. The arrival of the TARDIS changed all that in an instant. It materialised neither gradually nor gracefully, but with a screaming roar, tearing a box-shaped chunk out of the metal wall behind it. Flames lapped in rippling circles around its roof as it shuddered into solid view and then almost immediately faded as though struggling for a foothold. Finally, it became dark and solid once more, yet still fire rippled around it, its roof-light gouting flame like a Roman candle. The instant it was fully solid, the door flew open and the Doctor and Donna staggered out, choked and gasping, black smoke billowing after them. After a few steps, Donna stopped and turned back to face the stricken time machine. "I am never, ever out of the way," yelled the Doctor. Throwing himself forward, he wrapped his arms around her and rugby tackled her to the floor. A split second later, both TARDIS doors blasted outwards, and the space where Donna had been standing was occupied by a blazing inferno, which erupted from the ship as if propelled by a giant flamethrower. Pressed to the floor, shielded by the Doctor's body, Donna was astonished not so much by the flames, which were now boiling across the opposite wall, turning it black, but by the soaring, rousing song that accompanied it. It was a song she recognised, and the way it came bellowing out of the TARDIS made her think of boy racers back home in Chiswick, blasting the eardrums of passers-by with hip-hop from their car speakers. She had barely recognised the sheer ludicrous incongruity of the situation when, shwop! The gushing wall of flame was suddenly sucked back into the TARDIS as if time had gone into reverse. As the fire disappeared, so the music stopped too, abruptly cut off. Then the TARDIS doors slammed shut, leaving nothing behind but their dissipating echoes. After a moment, the Doctor and Donna rose unsteadily to their feet. Stunned, blinking, brushing smuts from her clothes, Donna looked at the scorched metal wall opposite the TARDIS doors and then at the TARDIS itself. The familiar police box shell was badly singed, its windows cracked by the heat, its roof lamp blackened and smoking. Hesitantly, she asked, Is it all right? Is it broken? Is it knackered?" Said the Doctor and gave her a long look. Donna suppressed a shudder. She knew exactly what that look meant. If the TARDIS was knackered... As the Doctor tentatively opened the door of his ship and poked his head inside, she thought of her family waiting at home. Sean, her husband, and Rose, her daughter, Mum and Gramps. Earlier today, she had been with them, blissfully unaware, and, it had to be said, pretty damn happy going about her normal life when, wham, everything had been turned upside down by the sudden reappearance of her old friend the Doctor, who just happened to be a Time Lord from a distant planet, and who trailed trouble in his wake as a wedding card trails old tin cans on bits of string. Thinking about it now, she couldn't believe she could have forgotten both him and all the amazing adventures they had shared. But then, during an encounter with his old enemies, the Daleks, she had absorbed all of his Time Lord knowledge and become the Dr. Donna, and in the end, he'd had to make her forget to prevent her brain from exploding with the sheer pressure of all the stuff that was packed into it. But even so, how could you forget something like that? Something so momentous, so incredible? Then the Doctor reappeared. The expression on his face was not reassuring. Even less reassuring was the way he buried his head in his hands. "Is it bad?" asked Donna softly, not sure she really wanted the answer. The Doctor raised his head and groaned. His voice was bleak. "It was brand new." "I'm sorry, not your fault." "Yes, it was." Donna took a deep breath. "But can we fly? Can you fix it? Can we get back home?" She looked at him hopefully. If there was one thing she could rely on, it was the Doctor always had a plan. He slipped his hands into his jacket pockets, and after a moment a slow smile crept across his face, which made Donna think of a small boy finding exactly what he'd hoped for in a lucky dip. "We can do anything," he said, and held up what he'd found in his right-hand pocket. "Sonic screwdriver." Then he withdrew what he'd found in his left-hand pocket. "And a non-sonic screwdriver." "I think a non-sonic screwdriver is called a screwdriver," Donna pointed out. The doctor nodded. "Thank you. But if I can..." His voice trailed off as he turned back to the TARDIS, working at the lock with the ordinary screwdriver. "If you can what?" Donna was about to ask. But as if he had read her mind, he suddenly began speaking again, picking up where he had left off. "Just reconfigure, because this old box can regenerate. So if I can just click it into gear..." He frowned, listening to the internal workings of the lock with all the concentration of a safecracker trying to break into a bank vault. "Funny thing is," he said suddenly, "if you drop a cup of tea into the controls, it's completely fine." Donna was about to ask him how often he'd done that, but then a more pressing question popped into her mind. "Am I going mad, or did the TARDIS play Wide Blue Yonder?" The doctor nodded. "It did, didn't it?" "What for?" "I wonder," he mused, gently stroking the scorched outer shell of his ship as if he might glean its secrets through touch alone. "We sang that in the choir in primary school," Donna continued. "We'd have a little concert every Christmas, but Gramps complained. He said you shouldn't be teaching children that. It sounds all jaunty and fun, but it's not. It's the military going to war." "It's the Air Force," said the doctor. "The words are Wild Blue Yonder, which means the TARDIS played us a war song. Aha!" He grinned as the lock clicked, then opened in a spiral, the metal rippling back. Pocketing the ordinary screwdriver, he produced his sonic once again and inserted it into the newly created hole, where it stuck out at a right angle. As if part of the machine itself, it began to whir and glow gently. "There," said the doctor with satisfaction, "it can rebuild." But no sooner were the words out of his mouth than there was a loud clank from inside the ship, which sounded to Donna like someone dropping a tin bucket on the other side of the door. Then the TARDIS began to jolt and grind alarmingly. The doctor stepped back, bemused. "Oops, okay, yes." As if in answer, the TARDIS began to make what Donna could only think of as a shuddering moan, perhaps the mechanical equivalent of someone sobbing with pain. Or, no, it was more than that. It had a ghostly quality to it, as if there was a restless spirit somewhere deep within the machine, wailing out its desolation and sorrow from beyond the grave. Suppressing a shiver, she glanced at the doctor, who was staring at his old ship in fascination. "Is it working?" she asked. "I think so," he said, but then rather spoiled it by murmuring, "Strange." He reached out and touched the TARDIS again. As if responding to him, the lamp on its roof suddenly blinked on and began to shine. The doctor gave a little skip of happiness. "There you go, mending, mending, mending. Give it a bit of time." He spun around, clapped his hands, eyes darting everywhere. "So, now, I wonder where we are, because that was quite a journey. We were flung across space and time. This feels like a spaceship?" He bent his knees, gave a little bounce, testing the conditions. Donna copied him. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah," she agreed. "Flight," said the doctor. She nodded. "Yeah, spaceship. Let's just see." He turned and strode towards the only door in the room, which was as featureless as the walls around it. The door slid smoothly, noiselessly open at his approach, and the two of them stepped through it. "Ooh!" Donna thought it, but was too gobsmacked to say it. The corridor they'd stripped into was vast, wide enough for at least 4 lanes of traffic, tall enough to accommodate St. Paul's Cathedral, and still have room to hang glide above its famous dome. Unlike the small, square, grey room they had vacated, the corridor was a gleaming, eye-piercing white. It was cylindrical in shape, its walls lined with curved reinforcement struts that were attached at their apex to a thick support beam, which ran along the centre of the ceiling high above their heads. To Donna, the design seemed disconcertingly organic, the struts and beams like the ribs and spine of some vast creature. She couldn't help feeling she was standing in the belly of a whale, albeit a mechanical one, 1,000 times bigger than those they had on Earth. Even the doctor seemed impressed by their surroundings. "Wow," he breathed, spinning slowly on his heels as he looked around. "Nice." "Big," said Donna, going for understatement in the hope it would make him laugh, but the doctor merely nodded. "Very big." She tried again. "I'd hate to be the cleaner." But this time he gave no indication he'd even heard her. He was peering into the distance, leaning forward as if those extra few inches would make a difference to what he could see. Donna followed his gaze, but as far as she could tell, there was no discernible end to the corridor, not in either direction in fact. It could be 100 miles long. Words finally slipped from his lips. Is that? And suddenly Donna could see it too. About half a mile away, standing motionless at the edge of the corridor, right where the floor met the huge curved wall, something taller than it was wide. A figure? "Hello," said the doctor, raising a hand. "We just landed, by accident. Hope that's okay." Donna expected his voice to echo, to boom, but the corridor was so colossal that his words were simply swallowed by the silence. Certainly the figure, if that's what it was, hadn't heard him, or at least gave no indication it had done so. It remained where it was, motionless. Donna felt a wriggle of unease. "Is it a person or a thing?" she asked, instinctively lowering her voice. "We could take a look," suggested the doctor. "Or we could stay here and wait for the TARDIS to mend itself so I can get back home. My family is waiting for me." The look he gave her was one of both disappointment and appeal. Donna sighed. "All right." The doctor punched the air. "Yes!" They started walking and had gone no more than a dozen steps when Donna suddenly felt a prickling on the back of her neck. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see a figure darting behind a buttress or a security camera pointing in their direction, but there was nothing. Paranoia, she thought. Perfectly understandable. I've just got out of the habit of doing stuff like this. "Still," she said, feeling a sudden need to fill the silence, "wherever we are, it could be worse. We've got air, we've got light, we've got mavity." The doctor flashed her a curious look. Mavity? This was something to be filed away for later. "Yeah," he said slowly. "Was it me," she continued, "or was Isaac Newton hot?" The doctor's reply was spontaneous and enthusiastic. "He was, wasn't he? He was so hot." Then he came to an abrupt halt in the middle of the corridor, a look of surprise on his face. "Oh, is that who I am now?" Donna laughed. "It was never that far from the surface, mate. I always thought..." Before she could elaborate, they heard a sound behind them, a sound that, though familiar, rooted them to the spot. The trumpeting grind of the TARDIS engines. They looked at one another with horrified realization. "What?" Donna yelled. "But no, no!" Then they were running, back along the corridor, back towards the door to the room where they'd left the TARDIS. It slid open accommodatingly, and as they rushed inside, only to see the faintest outline of the TARDIS as it faded away.
If you enjoy what I do here, although I can't think why, please remember to click the like button, smash that subscribe button, and hit the bell icon to be notified whenever I post a new video. You might also want to check out my website, www.worldsbestestpoet.com, if you fancy a laugh.